Hey guys, so today I wanted to talk a little bit about Watamote. This is a series that I've had in my collection since nearly the beginning, and it took me a very, very long time to really check it out. The title for the series is No Matter How I Look at It, It's You Guys' Fault I'm Not Popular, but obviously fuck that. So this is a slice-of-life comedy series, and it is ironically quite popular and iconic. And most of that popularity can be attributed to the 2013 anime adaptation, which was a huge hit when it came out, and it's still pretty popular to this day. A lot of people have seen Watamote, a lot of people recognize, the main character Tomoko, and back when it was new, I also watched it. When I was like 15 or 16, I watched this series and I ended up becoming a pretty big fan of it. So much so that I, of course, went in and picked up some of the manga. But ever since then, I never really gave it another look. I bought 8 volumes of it, and after that, I was like, okay, I'm not really reading this yet. I'll give it a rest. And now, years and years later, as in 2020, I make an effort to read all of the unread things in my collection. I decided to finally jump back into it. And I have a surprising amount of stuff to say. As I mentioned, this is a popular series. A lot of people have seen the anime, and most people can tell you what Watamote is, and they describe it as essentially a cringe compilation. It's a bunch of horribly embarrassing things happening to this teenage girl who has very bad social anxiety. And that's also how I would have described it back then. Now, despite being popular, this anime was quite polarizing. A lot of people, including my younger self, thought it was hilarious, but it also proved to be quite controversial for its treatment of mental health. How it really seems to portray this girl's, clear mental disorder as something to laugh at. And while I can see where those people are coming from, I don't think that was ever the intention, to make fun of mental health. But, that's one of the reasons why it stirred up a bit of a fuss, and it could be a reason why it never got a second season. So I was really interested going back into this series. I wanted to see if I still found it hilarious like I did when I was younger, because my tastes have changed quite a bit from when I was 15. So I began the journey, and to elaborate a bit more on the story, this follows Tomoko, who is a girl who's just starting high school, and her whole life she's been excited for high school, playing all these hentai games and shit. She's like, oh yeah, I'm gonna have so many boyfriends, I'm gonna be so popular. But that's not reality, because she has a very, very difficult time talking to people, and it gets her into some incredibly awkward situation. A normal person would think you'd feel super bad for her, but they kind of turn it into a comedy by making Tomoko, like an awful person. Like, oh my god, she's terrible. You can sympathize with her problems, but at the end of the day, it's really hard to like her. And about the first quarter of this series is basically just like an episodic, compilation of cringe. Tomoko gets into incredibly embarrassing situations that you would probably kill yourself if you were her. Sometimes she gets involved with her younger brother, her younger cousin. She does have one friend that she retained from middle school who's also shows up from time to time. This is all the series is at first, and it's all the anime is. And it was interesting. I'll admit, I didn't like this nearly as much as I did when I was younger. When I was younger, I was the same age as Tomoko. I could probably relate to the experiences a lot more. Just thinking like, oh my god, if this happened to me today, I would literally jump off the school. But now, being a lot older, and I think I'm more mature. I'm not entirely sure, but a lot of this stuff does come across as pretty mean-spirited. Like, man, don't get me wrong, there are a lot of really good, well set up, funny moments in the first part of this series, but I think overall it's just really, really uncomfortable. Like I said, Tomoko's not a good person, so it's hard to sympathize with her for anything. So the whole series is basically just pointing at this girl who sucks and being like, look at how miserable she is, and it's kind of just like, bruh, this is this is a bit extreme, Jesus. So yeah, that's what a lot of people see Watamote as. That's what I saw Watamote as. But as I kept reading, I was shocked to discover that this isn't what Watamote is at all. In fact, it changes so much that it kind of blew my mind. Because Watamote is not a cringe compilation at all. That's not what the point is. That's not what it was meant to be. Watamote is actually a very wholesome coming-of-age friendship story. It's about this girl who slowly begins to overcome all of her social anxieties, who starts to slowly make friends, to build connections and relationships with people. And when I realized this, I ended up really enjoying it. About like 5 or 6 volumes in or so is when things really start to change. Tomoko goes through like her entire first year of high school being like a complete loner, being miserable all the time. You know, like I said, she's an awful person, but you kind of understand why. It's because she really doesn't have anyone in her life. She's at that age where she doesn't really get along with her parents or her brother that much, so she usually spends all of her time locked away in her room watching porn or whatever. So when things finally start moving, when she finally starts to open up to people, you really start to see her growth as a character, which is honestly really good. Now, this is still a raunchy high school comedy. It is full of sex jokes, full of nonsense and shenanigans that, you know, only manga can get up to. But at the same time, I feel like it handles its building of friendships and Tomoko's character development extremely well and in an extremely realistic way. I'm basing this off my own experiences, but the friendships in this story not only feel genuine, but also supernatural how they occur. Like in real life, most of the times you don't become friends with someone instantly, like what happens in a lot of stories. It's usually like a gradual process over time, and that's what happens here with the friends Tomoko makes. At first, it only starts with people, you know, slightly talking to her, and then maybe they'll be forced to hang out in a group activity, and they'll slowly get closer and closer. And that type of stuff was really refreshing to see. And like I said, it is full of sex jokes. It's a high school, you know, comedy. But that aspect of it also kind of makes it a bit realistic because, you know, these are the type of jokes high school kids make. There's no characters who are like, baka, pervert. I'm like, yeah, this is crude and raunchy, but I used to joke about this with my friends too. Oh, and it's not an ecchi series either. There's none of that garbage. There's all perfectly wholesome stuff here. But yeah, the series really does transform itself. Most of the cringe stuff from the start of the series is completely gone. There are a few moments here or there that are pretty awkward, but overall it mellows out quite a bit and becomes just really, you know, laid back, chill, and funny and enjoyable. But you see, despite how much Tomoko grows throughout this series, you know, she still doesn't get over her anxiety. And I really like that. I think it shows that the creators really do care about, you know, the type of stuff they're talking about. You know, if you ever have anxiety as bad as Tomoko did, it's probably never really going to go away. You know, she still has problems. She still struggles with stuff. But all the friends she makes, all the people who help her, they help her grow into a better, more caring person, and they help her manage her anxiety. And all the characters are great. Like, they really are. Yeah, and like another reason why it's so natural, like these are all characters who have been there since the beginning. Like you would always see them in the background. So as they like slowly come more and more into, you know, the spotlight, you feel like you've known them for a while already, even though you really haven't. Like there are characters in the background of the anime who like never speak in the anime, yet they become major characters later on. Stuff like that I find really interesting and cool. They all feel like real people. You know, there's still obviously some, you know, big exaggerated anime stuff going on. One girl in Tomoko's class has a crush on a younger brother. That whole plot line is insane. But, you know, overall, things feel very grounded in this series, which I just love about it. The art style is pretty great too. It definitely improves a lot over the years. Nico Tanigawa here, this is actually a pen name for a writer and artist duo, and I think they both really did a fantastic job taking this, you know, series that most people just saw as like, you know, this wacky cringe comedy into something that was a lot more meaningful and a lot more enjoyable. So yeah, if you like this type of, you know, like raunchy but also wholesome high school comedy series, I would definitely recommend Watamote. The beginning is not going to be for everyone at all, but if you push through it, I think you'll really end up enjoying this series. And it's ironic with how popular this series is that not enough people really know what it actually is about. Because the anime covered such a small amount of this story that if you just watch that, you don't get a picture at all of what the series really is. So yeah, there are, I think, almost 20 volumes out now, about 180 chapters. It's been running for 9 years. Can you believe that? This series has been going for, it's so old. I do think, though, with where they are in the story, that, you know, it is getting close to the end, where being a bi-weekly series, you know, it's still gonna be a while, but I'm definitely gonna keep reading it. I've really grown to love it. So yeah, there you go. Those are my thoughts on Watamote. Very surprised with how this one turned out. And yeah, with that, I guess thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.